Hi, this is Michael Cullen for Film Sound Tutorials, and we're back with another video for my one-man workflow for post-film sound. Now in this video, we're going to talk about editing music or score for your film. So this is one of the last steps of the editorial process. So when I was doing all the editorial work, the composer was writing and composing the music, finishing up the score, and then they'll send it to me. And then I drop it into my super session here. Now, it's alright if you don't have a composer. There are tons of great websites online that you can buy royalty-free music, or there's even quite a bit of good Creative Commons music as well, and I'll put some links to those websites in the description below. Now, as I'm waiting for the composer to finish working on the music, I will work with the temp tracks that the editor puts into the cut to figure out basic timing. And so here in Murphy's Law, it looks like in our OMF, we probably have 2 stereo temp music tracks. And I can just tell by looking at them, you can see how there's 2 mono tracks here that look exactly the same. So let me just activate that and hear it. Cool, so that's definitely music. Let's pull that down to our music tracks. Put that in music A1 because it's the first music track I have. And it looks like too, there's another mono pair up here. And so I can activate these to listen to them. Nice, it sounds like some Bonnie Taylor disco music for the credits. So we'll pull that down as well. To elevator clips, it's Windows. And on Mac, I believe it's Apple. And we'll put this into MXA2 because this is the following track of MXA1, and we're checkerboarding our music. And so that's pretty much it for the temp music, and there's not much I can do as I'm waiting for the score. Now, when I am waiting for the music, I try to make contact with the composer or the music editor so we can have a dialogue on how I can receive my files. And having this dialogue is really important because then I can ensure that I can get the right files to do what I need to do while I'm editing and then mixing the film. And how I prefer to receive my music is in what we call stems. So instead of having a single stereo track like we do here with Bonnie Tyler or the other royalty-free music, I like to receive my music split out into different instruments. By having it split out in different instruments, then I can have much greater control on how I mix the music. So now that the composer has finished editing the music, he sent over all of the instruments as stereo wave files. And here's what he sent me. So inside my music folder, in my final stems folder, I have every single composition in its own separate folder. And inside that folder, I have every single instrument as its own separate stereo wave file. Now, what I then did was brought these into a separate Pro Tools session called Murphy's Law MX Edited, and I synced everything up to the time code that he provided. So in my super session here, now I'm going to pull in the edited session where I put all of the stereo tracks. And so I wanted to go right under BG4, and we'll do import session data. And it's located within my music folder, music edited, and there's the session. Great, so here's my edited Pro Tools session here. I have my Murphy's Law picture, my guide track that I don't need, and then I have 12 different MXA audio tracks where all my stems are located, and then a few MXB tracks just to fill it out. So I have 16 tracks in total, or a multiple of 8, which works well within a mixing board. So you can see here that my tracks are importing nicely, and now they just have to analyze themselves into this new session. And so this music was created by Ryan Stratton, a fantastic guy, and I'll put his website in the description below. So with all of my audio tracks now analyzed and imported correctly, we have a little bit of an organizational problem. Since we had the same track names in my super session before I imported my edited session, it gave my new tracks a 0.1 to the end, and so we can clean that up by first having to delete the previous tracks that we had in there. It looks like we had our temp music in that MXA track, so let's just pull those probably to MXB. And we'll get rid of our first MXA tracks and our first MXB tracks. Great. And then to keep things nice and neat, let's get rid of this 0.1. And this just happens because you can't have tracks with the same name within Pro Tools. Great. Because the music came in as stems, I decided to organize music depending on what instrument it is. And so you can see here on MXA1, I have all of my drum and percussion stems. And the reason I organized my music this way is because if I need a plugin to affect that instrument, then it will affect that instrument throughout the entire film. And so you can see here we have drums, we have electric bass, we have acoustic bass, we have electric guitar, we have acoustic guitar, we have acoustic guitar solo, we have a saxophone, we have some brass, we have some strings, we have electric piano, and we have some synths, and finally, acoustic piano. So that's a wide variety of stuff that the composer gave to me. And so now that we have everything organized by the type of instrument, there's a couple other things that I can do to help prepare the music for the mixing process. And first off, it looks like Ryan gave me all of the stems as stereo wave files, which is fine. However, sometimes I need the music in a different format. For example, whenever you're mixing bass, normally you have that as a mono file instead of a stereo file. So here's my electric bass here. Sounds great. And so I'm going to change this track to be a mono track, so it gives me more flexibility while I'm mixing it, and then I can pan it easier as well. And so to do that, I'm going to right click, split into mono. And so now you can see I have the stereo track, which it originally was, and then a left and a right version. I normally take the left version, and then I'm going to make inactive the stereo version, and then I can rename this track to be 2 stereo. And then I can hide this track so it's still in my session, but it's not cluttering up my workspace. And then I'll rename this track to be 2A mono. Great. And then the last thing, of course, is since this was the left track, Pro Tools automatically will pan it to the left, which is not what I really want to do. And so I'll just reset that back to 0 by holding Alt. And so you can hear it here. Awesome. And we're going to do the similar thing to a couple other instruments as well. For example, the acoustic bass needs the same thing. So let's split that into mono, delete the right side, call this stereo, call this mono, and hide and make inactive. That's what I want. Electric guitar. It sounds like he put some kind of ping pong reverb on it, so I'm not going to change that. Do we have a guitar solo? Because it's a solo instrument, it'd be nice to have that in mono as well. Split that into mono. Delete that. Call this ST. Call this mono. And hide and inactive. What about the sax? Yes, I'm going to have that as mono as well. Most of the time, anytime you're going to have a solo instrument, you'll want to have that in mono so you can easily pan that. Easily pan that track. The strings are going to stay stereo. Probably the electric piano as well. And you can even see, looking at the waveforms, there's different information on the left track as the right track. And I think that would be good for now. And it looks like down here, let's mute my temp music, because I'm not going to need that anymore. by hitting right click and mute clips. Great. And so I'm keeping them there just in case the director wants to see what we originally had. But now that we have the actual score, this is what we're going to be going with. And now the music is pretty much set for the mixing process. And so this concludes this tutorial. And in the next video, I'm going to go a little more into music editing for when the score or the music that I have doesn't fully match up to what I needed to do with the picture. So stay tuned for the next video, and I'll see you soon.